Just can I ask you a question, Anthony?
Yeah.
Do you think there's a difference between like someone
Well,
who has like five generations of people who listen to Bach and Beethoven and philosophy like Nietzsche and all that, and people who just live in Africa just in like a tribal thing, and then they come into the first world? Do you not think there might be some difference between them on so many levels? Like, do you think they're just we're all equal?
Do you consider yourself more like in the former category?
Yeah, of course.
Can you name me a single Bach or Beethoven song besides Moonlight Sonata or Für Elise? Yet you consider yourself part of this group? Like, come on, dude.
I can play Ode to Joy. I can play Ode to Joy. Like, no, I can't list off their songs, but it's
Wait, you can play
undeniable.
Ode to Joy, like the whole orchestra, like every instrument? What do you mean? Whoa, is there an ethno-stater dude in here?
Yeah, what's going on, Destiny?
You're not even... Oh, wait, never mind, you are. What's up?
What's going on?
Nothing much.
Oh yeah. We were just talking, and someone brought you up, and I was like, oh yeah, he's a bit of a cringe on the ethno-state. Like, I just don't. Maybe I don't understand your position properly, but you're against like the idea of an ethno-state, are you? Or
Yeah, I would say it's really fucking stupid for a lot of different reasons.
like, can I just ask like why? Like, and I mean, perhaps we should play around with definitions and stuff, but like, do you consider like Israel to be stupid or an ethno-state at all, or not? Not really.
Um, I don't know too much about like the ethno policies of Israel, but I don't like Israel for a whole host of other reasons.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. But so do you acknowledge the concept of ethnocentrism?
Why
By
are you reading the
by
article? The
concept, you
headline
mean like that
contains
it's
all
a
the
thing that
info
some
you
people believe
need.
in, or what do you mean?
Yeah, that's a thing that I would say has been historically around for like thousands of years.
Kind of. I think there's a difference between like a intentional ethno-state versus a happenstance ethno-state. Like, for instance, like some places might be a majority of a certain race, but they don't necessarily enforce that. It's just how things end up being.
Right, right. Should they preserve that even if they just end up like that from happenstance?
So if you ever feel like I'm unfairly characterizing you, please tell me. I just do this to make sure that we're both on the same page. So when you say should they, I'm assuming you're asking me if there's a moral imperative for them to do so, and I would argue no. I don't think there's a moral imperative to maintain a certain racial distribution in any given country.
Right, right, okay. What about like the argument that like Rome can or should remain Rome and shouldn't just let in, say, Syrians become part of Syria? Give up their culture, give up their people, give up their history.
So I reject all of the give up culture. I don't understand what that means. As somebody that studied culture, I don't understand what it means to give up culture. Like culture's changing all the time. What do you mean?
Take like a random from say England or America or Australia. They're going to have a certain culture compared to if you take a random from Somalia or Iraq or Afghanistan. There's
I don't, no, I don't really agree with that either. I think that if you take if you take like say you take somebody from a rural state in the United States, I think they would have more in common with, say, a fundamentalist Muslim than they would with me. So I don't agree that there's like some massive unifying culture across all of the Western world. Even in the United States, there are dramatically varying cultures between cities and country-dwelling people and whatnot.
Yeah, right. But differences in culture, but I mean like the general values of a society.
Give me a general value that you think all Americans share. Yeah, you can see where I'm going with this, but...
I can't see where you're going. What do you mean?
Okay, well, give me a general value that you think all Americans share.
God-given rights to all men created equal, something like that.
Okay, so we had slavery for a long fucking time. A lot of people have very different ideas about the implementation of all people created equal. I mean, you're arguing in favor of the ethno-state. You're not American, of course. But I mean, there are a lot of Americans that think that not all people are created equal, that some people are inherently better than other people. I mean, this is not a shared value.
You don't think like violence might not be like a little less acceptable, say, in America than it is in Somalia? Like culturally even, not just legally, but culturally?
I mean, it really depends on what exactly you're talking about. If you look at like our prison systems, I think people are very much in favor of like retribution violence. Like we talk all the time about how like if somebody commits a crime, I hope that guy gets raped in jail and shit like that.
well, it's a form of preventing violence.
No, it's not. That's not empirically borne out in any data whatsoever.
So you're saying that if we just let violent people go, or like what do you suggest we do with violent people?
That we actually try to rehabilitate them, like what other first world countries try to do, or at least Scandinavia is trying to do.
Right. Well, that makes sense, but that's not really like.
Scandinavia uses prisons too.
Yeah, they do, but they're not like American ones.
Yeah, they're different, but they're still prisons.
Yeah, but the goal is different. In America, we look at punish and retribution and justice. Those are what we think about when we think of prisons. Prisons are supposed to be for rehabilitation, not a way to enact vengeance.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can agree with that. We can criticize the American jail system. That's fine.
Basically, the goal that I'm trying to get across is that I think that you win your argument by default if you present a really disingenuous view of the West as having some unified culture, because then you can turn it into an us versus them thing really easily. But
see, you're always going to find sorry, not.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
Find exceptions. You're always going to find exceptions. Like if I say most people in the West say it's wrong to kill someone, there are people that say it's right to kill people.
Well, no, I'm not. I mean, for something as vague as that, I would agree that most people say that it's probably wrong to kill someone for like.
And in Somalia, would you agree that most people say it's probably okay to kill someone or rape someone in like across the board?
I don't know too much about Somalia, so I'm not entirely sure. I don't know.
Because I can say like they would say rape is pretty much okay there.
Most Somali, I mean, maybe you're going like bottom of the barrel, like sub-Saharan African countries at that point. But
giving you an example, like that, I think.
Yeah, you're giving me an example. This isn't like a mark against all black people or anything, though. We're pretty far from an ethno-state. But yeah, I guess I could agree with that. Sure.
Why is it against all black people? See, why do you assume there's some racist intent behind this?
Because we're having a discussion about an ethno-state. It's racially motivated.
How is that racially motivated? Ethnicity isn't just about race, Destiny. It's about culture. It's about language. It's about an entire history of people.
This guy
you don't think
thinks
there might be some sort of
nationalism is
difference
a
between
race.
someone who's grown up with, say, I don't know.
Wait, hold on. If it's about language and culture, then why not just make a culture state or a language state?
Well, I'm down for that. But that's what ethno-state means.
No, that's not what ethno. What does ethno mean? What does the ethno part stand for?
Ethnicity.
Okay, so it doesn't mean culture and language.
It's not limited to race.
Ethno is nation.
It's limited to culture.
No,
race.
ethno is not nation. That would be civic nationalism. That's not what ethno-state means.
The definition of nation is the same as ethnicity, essentially.
No, it's not. Wait, why are you lying to me?
The etymology behind nation.
We're not talking about the etymology. This isn't a let's go to the dictionary and find out. If ethno-state and nation meant the same thing, then why do you need the word ethno-state? You're being disingenuous right now. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are different, ways that you refer to ethno-state, and it's not contextually similar the way you're using it. So, yeah. You're being a bit ridiculous. Like, obviously, Destiny is using it in a different sense.
Well, no, I'm using it in the same sense that he's using it. He's just pretending that he's using it differently now. I totally reject the idea that. What?
Hold on, I'm not pretending. I'm not pretending anything.
Nation and ethno-state should mean the same thing.
I'm referring to ethnocentricity. So I'm referring to language, culture, race, all of these things. Just can I ask you a question, Destiny?
Yeah.
Do you think there's a difference between like someone who has like 5 generations of people who listen to Bach and Beethoven and philosophy like Nietzsche and all that, and people who just live in Africa in like a tribal thing, and then they come into the first world? Do you not think there might be some difference between them on so many levels? Like, do you think we're all equal?
Do you consider yourself more like in the former category?
Yeah, of course.
Can you name me a single Bach or Beethoven song besides Moonlight Sonata or For Elise? Yeah, you consider yourself part of this group? Like, come on, dude.
I can play Ode to Joy. I can play Ode to Joy. Like, no, I can't list off their songs, but it's.
Wait, you can play Ode to Joy, like the whole orchestra, like every instrument? What do you mean?
No, I can play the main, E, F, G, G, F, E, G. I can play that.
Okay, do you think that most people in Western culture can like know all of like the discography of Bach?
I think most people in Western culture know what Ode to Joy is compared to most people in Somalia.
I guess it's possible. When I look at popular music today, it seems.
Are you kidding? How is that?
This is like the most disingenuous like meme I've even heard. Like.
That's not like.
I like when I look at music today, you're acting like if I go out on the streets and I look at white people, there's like all of these people worshiping like classical. I don't know. It's just like a really weird argument.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying people in the West, we've all heard of Beethoven. We've all heard of Bach.
But I bet there's a lot of like really complicated polyrhythmic music and shit in a lot of African places that we're not familiar with.
No, not like Bach. No.
What do you mean? Bach didn't.
they are related to our cultural development, whether we understand or know of them.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you don't understand, like I'm not a Christian, I hate Christianity, but like I acknowledge it's probably part of my mind in a way that I don't understand or even like. Would you agree with something like that, Destiny?
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
Like you can be completely against something like, say, Christianity, but it can be part of who you are and part of your mind.
I mean, I'm completely against Christianity. I don't consider it a part of my mind at all. I don't know what you mean by that.
As in, it's part of like
it seeps into your value system.
Your literature, your values, everything in your life could be probably related back to that in a lot of ways.
I mean, your culture around you is inescapable to some extent. I would agree with that, sure.
Right, so I don't see where we're disagreeing then.
We got to agree. Okay, wait. What did we just agree on? Sorry.
Well, I'm saying that people have the right to have an ethno-state, to control their own ethnicity.
Okay, how did we? Yeah,
nation. Let's just call it nation for simplicity.
Okay, sure. Well, yeah, if we agree that people have a right to form a nation, then yeah, we don't disagree on anything. The United States is already a nation.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not? By what?
Nations are defined by ethnicity.
This is
You said at the start that you thought it was wrong to have an ethno-state. That was, and it was stupid and stuff like that. I mean, I guess you can say
I don't know. We've like tautologically defined, like, do you think that 3 is 5? And I'm like, no. And then the other guy's like, well, actually it is, because by definition 5 is 3. And I'm like, well, wait, why is that? And he's like, well, because 5 is 3. It's like, I don't know, like what.
Do you think when France was developed as a nation, it was anything other than French people that lived there?
I probably, it was mostly French. I don't know the history of France. My history is actually pretty shit.
No. So nations as developed were ethnic groups.
Yes, they were ethnocentric. Absolutely. There's no denying that.
Oh,
for like
okay. So the United States was Native Americans, or what is the ethnic background of the United States?
Ethnocentric. It was mostly white people. It actually says in the
bill. It was mostly Western Europeans. So some French, some Germans, and primarily English.
Okay, so in the new like America, should we have like only English people, since that's like what our primary founding ethnicity was, or?
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
So we get rid of all the Germans, all the Spaniards, all the Italians, all the Irishmen?
Probably get rid of the Spaniards and the Irish, yes.
Interesting. And now that everybody's like, their blood is all muddled up, what do we do with all the mixed people and everything?
We, case-by-case basis, I guess, try to figure out what the best solution is.
I have a solution. Like, I think we just send them to Israel.
Okay.
Or to, you know, the Middle East or Mexico or something like that. Other places where mixing has occurred frequently in the past.
But not in the United States, where mixing has not occurred frequently, even though this is literally a country of immigrants.
Well,
a country.
The United States, if we're to save the United States, we should probably try to get rid of as many mixed people as possible, because mixing does destroy nations, yes.
That's interesting, okay.
I mean, most mixed countries are fallen civilizations of some variety.
I mean, most of every type of country is a fallen civilization. I'm not aware of countries today that have existed for...
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, that's true.
So maybe every single country is just doomed to fail?
Unless we stop the things that cause them to fail. Yes, essentially.
So Destiny, do you think like Napoleon Bonaparte and stuff like that were like racist for being ethnocentric?
Was a democratic nutcase.
Yeah, he probably was a nutcase, but I mean, was he racist for being ethnocentric? Like, because that was just a concept for thousands of years.
Yeah, if you're ethnocentric and you're basing your values on the race of somebody, I would argue that of course you're racist. That's like the definition of being racist. Yeah.
But again, ethnocentric. I'm not limiting. I don't know where you've got that definition from, but to me, when I look it up, it says. I mean, I could look it up now. 1 sec. I can't talk and type at the same time. 1 sec.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey.
I think that diversity increases the amount of racism in any place that it's practiced. So I would.
Well, of
I would argue
course,
that
and
diversity itself is racist.
having hands increases the amount of violence that occurs anywhere. That I mean, you can't have racism without multiple races. You can't have violence without hands. That doesn't make the original things necessarily bad.
Yes, but hands are useful in other ways. Diversity is not useful in other ways.
Well,
Hands
I mean,
you can also build things with.
I mean,
diversity
you can build.
Doesn't have any positive qualities at all.
So no, there is no benefits to our economy by having immigrant labor or anything like that. All of that is strictly negative.
Absolutely.
Under what definition?
Because you can have those things without diversity. You can have a productive population without diversity.
Do you just force people to make more babies? Is that like a new government program, or?
You don't have to force anybody to do anything. You can have a productive nation without forcing other people to move into the country.
Yeah, but it'll be less productive than if you would allow people to come into the country.
That's not true at all.
But it's true by definition.
No, it's not.
Why do you? What do you think happens when?
What if you've got unemployed white people that could be doing it themselves?
Our unemployment is at like fucking 4% in the United States. What do you?
I see where you're going anyway, Destiny. But wouldn't you think that's like a short-term way of looking at it?
No, I'm looking at it in the long-term way.
Really. So we're bringing all these people for what is a short-term thing of producing more food now, as you said.
Why do you think markets and the economy are short-term things? Labor is a resource. You grow your country by expanding your pool of resources. How is it a short-term thing?
Because it has a short-term effect, but it has a long-term negative effect, and
that's what I was
society itself suffers from
it. I guess I just don't see all these society sufferings.
Different ethnic groups against each other. These are negative aspects of diversity.
Destiny, a good way to refute this guy's point is to bring up the study from the Cuban immigrant study from Florida.
Yeah, I understand David Card's immigration study. It's the Mariel Boatlift stuff. But that's just economic stuff. Why can't you just? Here's a question, because I just don't understand this. Why can't you just live with people that look different than you? Why is it like such a big deal for you?
It's not just about looking different than us. They act different.
Okay, so name one action.
Just quickly, Destiny, just quickly. I'm happy to live with people that live like that, look differently and all that. If it's like 10, 20% of the population, I don't want it to be 80% of the population changes to a different culture.
Why does it matter?
Well, because I think that would change the culture.
In what negative way does it change
things?
things?
The whole of society.
Somalia's culture sucks. Our culture is beautiful.
What, the culture? So our culture today is the culture of Bach and Beethoven? What does that even mean?
Well, no, it's a development of it. Absolutely, it's extension of it. But it's our culture is undeniably better than Somalian culture or Afghanistanian culture. Do you deny that? I mean. That's not.
It's just like a really weird way to. It sounds like a really basic, uneducated way to describe a culture. Like X culture is better than this culture. I don't know. It's just a really weird.
But it is. What do you mean? Like that sounds like a moral relativism, cultural relativism. You're kind of slipping in there, like.
Yeah, of course, because everything is relative. Yeah, the way our culture changes all the time.
Everything is relative. So like pain is relative, suffering is relative.
To some extent, yeah. Some people today, if they lose their cell phones, like go fucking crazy. I would say that's a relative kind of suffering.
Right, but okay. So say I'll give you the Sam Harris question that he asked Russell Brand. If you had your children, we were doing some sort of experiment. You had your daughters, and they had to grow up in, say, America, or they could grow up in Afghanistan. Which one would you choose for them if you wanted if you had their well-being in mind?
Probably the United States versus Afghanistan. Sure.
Probably. Now, see, that sounds like a simplistic understanding. How are you saying that we're better than them?
I didn't say we were better than them. You're asking me a question of nations, and then you're trying to say that applies to the people. You're asking two separate things. The country of the United States of America is better than the country of Afghanistan, in my opinion, in several different ways. However, but it's not just about the people, though. It's about our institutions that we've built. Those don't just go away because you bring other people into the country.
Do you really think we've put the institutions in the Middle East that would just work? Like we've done this?
Over time, yeah, sure. I think that most countries would probably tend towards something that we have. I don't know. I guess it could be a little different. I don't know. It kind of depends. I mean.
Plus, okay, you're saying over time. Let's say that happens over 100 years. What about right now, though? We're talking about now, aren't we?
I'm not. I look into the future. I have a kid. I want the future to be as good as it possibly can be.
Okay, well, for the kid's lifespan, is Afghanistan going to be as good as America in the next 50 to 60 years?
Well, I don't know, maybe. African countries have made extreme gains all across the board in the past, 20, 30 years. I don't know if parts of the Middle East.
Gains. They're not as good as the US. I mean,
not yet, but I mean, as they get better, it's better for the U.S. as well. Like, if Africa is a valuable trading partner to the United States, if we can market goods to them, if we can get labor from them, like...
I agree. That's good for everyone. That's mutually beneficial.
So, yeah, so I would want these nations to develop as much as possible. Yeah, sure.
Right. Wouldn't that involve keeping their people in their nations and not letting them all come to our nation?
No, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm a liberal. I don't know what your background is, but like, I mean that like in the classical sense. So like, I think people should be free to choose to do what they want to do, what they feel is best for their lives, as long as you're not infringing on the rights of other people.
Even if they're not classical liberals themselves. But even if they hold retrospect values, they want to come to you and impose, say, Sharia law. Stuff like that, they should still just be allowed to migrate into your country. And
no, I mean, I would hope that the laws of my country or whatever could protect me from that, I guess.
Okay, do you think they're currently doing that?
I mean, there's no Sharia law or whatever taking over the United States, so I mean, yeah, I think they're doing a decent job right now.
Right, okay, but do you think you'd have to be able to see it right now for it to be a thing that could be, like, evolving?
I would need to see like a demonstrable mechanism for that. Like the Muslims that come to the United States are much more like westernized than the ones that live in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I don't think they're.
Yeah, you're right. But so, their children are actually more extreme than them and more fundamentalist than their parents are.
Cool. So that's something that I would look to try to fix.
Right. Okay, good. Bring them in, right? Well, how would you fix it?
Well, first, I mean, starting off with like less racist rhetoric and maybe more acceptance of people that look different than us is probably a good way to do it.
That's what they need. That's what people in Somalia are raping girls because we're not accepting them.
I'm not talking about people in Somalia. Why do you keep jumping around? Like every single brown person is like this monolithic thing to you. There are more brown people than
Islam more or less, like Muslims more or less do like share these values in regards to people.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Like Muslims more or less do share like these values in regards to women.
Who shares which values?
Muslims.
No.
Yes.
The way that women are treated in Saudi Arabia, where I think they still have to wear fucking the headscarf shit, versus Indonesia, where they've elected a female head of state.
I trust you to choose Indonesia. You choose the one country that Islam's migrated to like recently, and that is a democratic nation. It's the only country that you could have chosen and had that example. Can you find one other example of that, please? Just anything other than Indonesia. Thanks.
I mean, every country practices Sharia a different way. I mean, any country is going to be slightly different than any other country. Muslims are not.
Any form of Sharia, though. I mean,
do what?
Would you agree to any form of Sharia, even if they're practicing it a different way?
Me personally, I don't like any religious law. But a lot of Muslims that are pro-Sharia don't want Sharia enforced on other people. They just think that it's the religious law that they should follow. There are a lot of Muslims that are pro-Sharia that only want other Muslims or Muslims to follow Sharia law, much the same way that there are a lot of Christians that want a lot of people to follow Christian law. I would consider both of these things horrible fucking things, but if religious people want to do what religious people do, then they do it.
Right. But other Christians are already here, whereas a lot of the Muslims aren't here, and wouldn't, like, if they've got these values, wouldn't it just make sense to try to do something to limit that?
Yeah, sure, but I would hope to win it in the marketplace of ideas, much the same way I do with the horrible fucking Christians that live in my country.
Yeah, all right, that's fair. But so it's all about just. So you would just let an unlimited amount in and try to win the marketplace of ideas. Wouldn't it be smarter to not let as many in? Still try to win the marketplace of ideas. Fine, that's fair.
I don't know, if an unlimited amount is a good idea. That seems pretty extreme. I mean, it would depend on like how our immigration policy and everything's shaped up, I guess.
Okay. And
wait, did you ask a question or were you?
Nah, sorry, I'm trying to think back to the original disagreement.
Oh, sure. You know that Indonesia has like a population of like 800 million people. It's not just like a small like Switzerland or something and like, oh, you got the one meme example. Like, it's a decently sized country.
No, yeah, but it's funny because like a lot of like I see it a lot. Like people bring up Indonesia when they're defending like Muslim majority countries. They're like, but it's democratic. It's this proves this. This proves this. And it's like, yeah, but like Islam migrated there quite recently in history compared to Iran.
Sure, and Iraq. Christianity migrated to the United States in a pretty fucking violent way. I mean,
Right, exactly. But I'm not trying to use the United States as an example of why Christianity is okay or something like that.
I guess like
Whereas you kind of doing that in
when
regards to Islam.
when I think of like a strong and intelligent person who wants to build like a stronger, more intelligent country, I'm thinking of somebody that's focusing on values that we can all unite around and on values that will make everybody better off. So if somebody says something like, I think that more of the population should be educated, I think that we need to focus on improving some sort of infrastructure or large systems in our country that impact everybody, like healthcare or economic things, like these are things that are good. When somebody tells me that like the best way we can make our country better is so that everybody looks the same, that's just like such a weak.
What if someone said both? Like, because that's kind of seems like you're straw manning it into a dumb position.
I just
what if they said both, like where they said they were both, they wanted to increase education, all the good things that we could agree on, and then also that they had an ethnic worry that they didn't want it to go say under 80%, 85% of a certain demographic in their nation. Would that be?
No, I just anybody that brings that up, that like the way that the people look is like a really important part.
It's not about just how they look, Destiny. Like, it's about, like, again, like, we have to go, I hate to go back to it, but, like, if you take a random Australian, they are going to be better in terms of values compared to a random Somalian.
Sure, but if you take a random Somalian that's immigrated and has lived in Australia for 30 years, they're going to be different than a Somalian that lives in Somalia. Like, yeah, of course, culture is malleable.
That costs a lot of money to do. So wouldn't it make sense to say we need to limit how much we do that? How much we bring from Somalia, train into Australia, give them our culture, That's great, but doesn't that need to be limited?
To some extent, sure, to whatever your economy can bear. I'm not saying that you literally send
why as soon as I say that, do you go to, but why? It's not about how people look, oh, this is racist. Like, it goes to this straight away, this racialist kind of like, you must be.
Because when I talk about limiting things, I'm talking about like what can your country bear in terms of like economic load is what I'm thinking of. When you're saying it, you're going to tell me that like I want 20% of no more than 20% of the population to be non-white or something. It'll be like based on race or ethnicity.
Yeah, but because I think that is part of what you just said. Like, I use Douglas Murray's example of the lifeboat. Like, if your country's a lifeboat, yeah, it's great to take in other people who might need help swimming and shit. But, like, not if it's going to sink your own lifeboat. Right?
Yeah, that's like, an incredibly simplistic and dumb way to look at, like, countries, though.
Oh, thank you. Well, tell that to Douglas Murray. I mean, like, how is that a dumb, like, it's an analogy to get a point across, because
it's this really stupid, uneducated...
struggling with this point, because look at England. The lifeboat is sinking. Okay?
It's not.
Oh my god.
The only reason England is sinking right now is because the fucking retards voted to leave the largest fucking market in the world. Like, that's the problem that England is going to be facing, is what they're going to do post-Brexit. Immigrants aren't destroying England.
We can argue Brexit if you really want. But
there's nothing to argue. I'm not going to sit here and argue with the layman against, like, consensus fucking opinion on it. No, they're fucking retarded.
That's, okay. Interesting argument. I'm not going to argue against this argument. No, retarded.
Your argument is going to be the same. Like, I don't care about any of the economics. It's the brown people are scaring and raping everybody. Like, it's not an argument.
Economics is part of the boat sinking, and the analogy was...
Except every single economist, there's, like, universal consensus on whether or not immigration is good or bad for the economy.
Yeah, and they all agree that a limited amount is good, not what you're pushing.
What do you mean, what I'm pushing?
I'm saying it's limited. I'm saying we should have limited immigration.
Okay, limited how, though?
By what you're saying, by whatever measured, by what...
The thing is that I'm not looking at race when I'm trying to decide like how to determine immigrants. Race is a really important part for you.
No, it's part of it though. Are you getting those people?
But why does it have to be part of it at all? It's so confusing to me.
Because it has been for thousands of years. It's confusing to me that you just want to apply this.
Okay, and people shit in the streets for thousands of years. What does that have to do with anything? That's like such an appeal to tradition. Like, am I supposed to agree with that? Like, oh, well, a lot of people did it a long time ago. Maybe you're right. Like,
no, but that might be a reason that they're ahead, is because they stayed with their groups. And
but you just told me that every single nation has fallen, so we need to figure out why they fell and changed.
I didn't say that. The other guy said that. But I mean, I could.
Well, okay. I mean, like, every civilization prior to this has fallen, so I don't know. I personally like moving.
I think it's probably built in that all civilizations fall eventually. It's like an evolutionary mechanism. Like it just happens. But that's another debate, it seems. But do you not think there's a demographic issue with what's happening in London? There's no issue at all. The reason Ariana Grande's concert got bombed has nothing to do with immigration.
I don't think that the color of people's skin is like a really important factor in determining their value or worth to any country.
Well, you didn't answer his question.
Evading the question.
So, I mean, what does the question even mean? Are you saying if like no immigrants were ever allowed, would it have stopped, or?
No, I'm saying limiting them and reasonable discussions without accusations of racism and stuff would have helped this problem, and that's something the West has struggled with.
Which problem? Which problem specifically? Which one? What are you talking about?
Enoch Powell, when he came out and said, you know, in whatever year it was, 69 or 70 or whatever, and he said, "Oh, there's going to be rivers of blood because of the immigrants coming into the country." That was a horrible speech, right? We can all agree on that, and that set back this debate. Like, and because of that, we haven't been able to have this debate. Whenever anyone brings up anything to do with this topic, it's just, no, you're a racist. You're not progressive enough. You know, stuff like that. You're all right. You're Richard Spencer. You're a Nazi. Whereas it seems like you're actually kind of like we do find some room where we are where we are agreeing. Sorry, like you are saying, there does need to be a reasonable limit. You can't just let unlimited amounts in.
Of anybody, of white people or brown people, though, but it still is.
Of course, no, absolutely. We can't just let in unlimited white South Africans or something. I agree. Like, you know, but that's what I'm arguing, is that like we need to go off what, you know, not just the economists, they're important, but economists and all other sorts of, you know, socio studies and socioeconomic studies and stuff say is the reasonable amount. But it seems to me to just say that race has no part in that. That seems to be illogical. Like, clearly race does.
Okay, I mean, that's my personal opinion. I just don't think that race is like an important factor in determining somebody's value to anything. It just seems like a really silly.
But do you not think like like on a personal level, I agree. Like if you meet a random, knowing their race isn't helpful, you want to talk to them, see what they're about. They might be nice, they might be an asshole, right? But on like when you're talking about immigration policy and stuff, don't you think like this whole individualist basis kind of is too hard to enforce? Like we see this at the airport, treating everyone as an individual and stuff. You end up wasting time checking the old granny who's not going to have the bomb, when you should be checking me and you and Arabs and stuff. What is that triggering?
I don't understand what the point of this question is. Like, racial profiling means that
we should, yes, racial profiling, at some extent, if you're not racially profiling, you're just wasting money and time. Like, if you're just going to check the old white lady for the bomb, that is actually a waste of money and time, and actually is dangerous.
Okay, so like here's my question. Like, why can't you just find the values that you want to keep in your society and then just focus on those values? Why does whiteness have to be so important? Like, if you don't want criminals, just make like a ethno-state or whatever you'd call it, or like a no criminal state. Like, why not just do that? Export all the criminals, and if you commit a crime, or if you want a high IQ state, then get rid of all the low IQ people. If you want like a box state with people that only listen to Ode to Joy, just make a box state. Why does race have to play into it at all?
What kind of values would that actually work for?
Whatever value you target.
And what do you think a value? What kind of a value do you?
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut out. What kind of value? What?
What kind of value is a good example of that, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. You tell me. I don't know if you could build a country around a single value. I'm not sure.
But anyway, even though you don't think it can work.
Wait, what?
You're okay with it anyway, though, even if you don't think it can work.
No, I'm not. Why? When did I say I was okay with it?
You said, why not build a society based on values?
Well, no, I'm asking you. I'm saying if race isn't like the be-all and end-all, why wouldn't you just build a society around
this was an idea that you had, so I thought maybe you had an example of how we could do that.
Well, I mean, I listed some. Like, it seems that like you use race as a proxy for other things, but when I ask you to target the other things, you don't want to do that.
Values correlate strongly with race and culture.
So you're doing it again. Instead of just targeting the value, you use race as a proxy, even if you can do it more accurately, which leads me to believe that you're more concerned about the race than anything else.
I think doing it by race is a more accurate way of doing it, yes.
But you guys couldn't even agree on how you would do that. With mixed race people, you said a case-by-case basis of the entire country.
Well, it would be a difficult problem to sort out, yes.
Okay, so you're not even aware of.
But are we talking on here?
You're not even aware of how you would.
Well,
do the thing you want to.
Issue, yes.
How well?
You just did the same thing. Why are you going to say he's not aware of how he's going to do something, but you just advocated for doing something that you yourself weren't aware of how to do it?
No, mine were much more simple.
Wait, I'm on your Discord.
What I'm saying is.
You said a value.
Okay,
of some sort.
here's the problem when I talk to racists, okay? And this is like, it's really frustrating, okay?
Why
Is
do
that
you call us names too? Which is
I'm
very-
not calling you a name, I'm describing your position. It's not necessarily a bad thing if you want to be racist. I don't care. Fuck. It's a what?
It's ethnocentrism. It's not racism.
Your position is not centrist.
Ethnocentrism. Sorry.
Oh, sure. Ethnocentrism. So deciding how your nation is based on the way that people look sounds like discriminating against people based on race.
It's not just based off how they look. It's based off culture. It's based off, it is based off race as well. That's involved.
Okay, so that's
Culture.
racist. So there you go. It's partial.
It's more
Yeah.
nationalist.
If you're going to
which
say
is
that's
not
racist, then you have to check the little white lady at the airport.
It's not nationalist, because if it was nationalist, then you would look at someone that's brown, someone that's black, someone that's yellow, and someone that's red, and someone that's white, and you would go, oh, hey, all of you are American. Look, I'm nationalist now. That's not what you're talking about, though.
That's not national. Nationalism is ethnicity.
But then why are there two different words?
Well, I don't know. People decide to change the definition of words. That's not my issue.
Wait, are you from the United States?
I'm Canadian myself.
Okay, when somebody
I'm
asks
just
for your
Southern United
ethnicity, do you answer Canadian? Do you say that?
No, I say I'm British.
Okay, so ethnicity and nationalism are two different things.
No, if you're talking about the nation that I live in, or the country, to as patriotism if I'm defending the interests of that country.
Okay, you're using like I would need to catch up on like all the new definitions that you've invented to keep
Well,
up.
it's not a new definition. I'm using the old definition.
Okay, well, whatever definition you're using is not used in common parlance in any place that I've ever heard of
You're
anymore.
right.
So,
You're right.
because usually nation refers to a country, and a country is like a geographic distinction, and ethnicity refers to ethnic groups of people, which is not have anything to do with borders. So I'm not. Yeah, I don't know what the definition is. Yeah.
People are using the words incorrectly.
Well, they're not incorrect. You don't really get to decide how a word is used. If the consensus on a word changes, then the definition of the word changes. That's how language works.
I think they're using them incorrectly.
Okay.
Because I
Yeah,
go
well,
by the
I also-
original.
But an
I gotta
individual can't
point out-
override opinions on language. That's not how any language is. You're speaking a language right now that's derivative of. I mean,
are you saying that
Yeah,
people's
wait,
opinions
I need to. I
determine,
want to speak
like,
up with
people's-
one thing here. There's the term nationalism, but then there's other terms within that, and one of those is ethno-nationalism. So we have that word for a reason. If it's nationalism specifically based around ethnicity, that's ethno-nationalism. It's not just nationalism.
Yes, people use that word these days because of the confusion between of the word nationalism, which is actually ethno-nationalism.
it just blows my
It's the
mind
same-
that
it's
you're
the same
Canadian,
thing.
you're Canadian, and I'm American, and you and me are as far from possible as being native to this continent, and you want to use
Yeah.
like nationalism as though it's synonymous with ethnicity. That's just very strange to me.
Yeah, and that's you selectively choosing how you want to use the word. A lot of people would not recognize it as inherently linked like that.
Well, nationalism by definition is based on ethnicity.
No, it's
That's what the
not.
word
Well, no, the word is like it's nation. It's about who's in the nation.
No, it's not. That's okay. We can disagree.
Wait, what under what common usage can I like look it up?
Common usage. Who said anything about common usage?
That's what language is. Why aren't you speaking Latin to me right now?
Language is based on origin.
No, it's
what the word
not. That's not
actually
how
means,
language
not based
works.
on- If people redefine things, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that it's the definition of the word.
But it kind of does.
Sure, common parlance. All right.
I mean, I would suggest. I think. if you-
Anyway, this is getting sidetracked. You guys carry on with what you were talking.
yeah. Okay.
Well, I've forgotten what we were up to be honest.
Okay, so my frustration is that every time I talk to people, they always use race as a proxy for other issues instead of just targeting that issue. That's why I asked, why not just target the issue? So a common one will be IQ. People will say something along the lines of, white people have higher IQ than black people, so let's get rid of all the black people. So I ask, okay, well, why not just get rid of the low IQ white and black people and keep the high IQ white and black people and just target IQ? And I never get like a good response to that because it all comes back to, well, I want white people too. Like, why not just make it all about the race? Why say culture or anything else? Like,
My response to that would be that why should all the high IQ people be in one place?
I'm just giving IQ as an example. You can choose any other thing you want to proxy for.
You said you wanted a good response to that, so I gave
So your response is, well, I would never say that in the first place. It doesn't really answer my hypothetical.
No, my response is that we shouldn't have all the high IQ people in one place. We should have a mix of people all over the world, and they should form nations of people.
That wasn't what he was really getting at, though. I think you're kind of missing what he was getting at, to be honest.
He said he wanted a good response to why people can't form nations based on IQ.
No, I didn't. I asked why people use race as a proxy for other issues instead of targeting those individual issues.
You're saying why not use the IQ as the determinant, not the
or
race?
whatever IQ can be X trait or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I might not be using the 1840 definition of every word I'm saying. So,
and it's just you can just say it's a play on definitions, but I agree with that. But I would just change out the word IQ for ethnicity, because I don't see ethnicity as equal to race. You, for some reason, do. That's fine.
Okay, wait. So, what is your definition of ethnicity?
Well, I looked it up before, but the other guy was talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The state or fact, the fact or state of belonging to a social group that has a common nation or cultural tradition. I don't care so much about the nation part of that. I care more about the cultural tradition part. But that to me, like.
Okay, sure, dude. I'm on board with your ethno-state then. Yeah. I mean, like, you've redefined ethno-state to mean something that, like, SJWs would be happy with. So, yeah, I agree with it. It's just people that have, like, a somewhat common culture and traditions and shit. It's probably important for having a country. Yeah, sure. I think that we should all share some kind of similar values. So, sure. All right, you got me, dude. Any other discussion topics?
No.
All right, well, thanks a lot, guys. Have fun.
The whole time.
What? Yeah, I guess. You use the word ethno-state, but it has nothing to do with the traditional sense of ethnicity. You've redefined ethnicity to mean civic nationalism. So yeah, I mean, I agree with that. You think that a bunch of different kinds of people can come together and share culture and traditions and values, and I totally agree with that. So I'm on board with your ethno-state, which has nothing to do with the actual definition of ethnicity. Yeah.
What's your definition of ethnicity, though? I mean, that's what
I use I thought that ethnicity had to do with, like, your genetic ancestry. I don't know why, but I thought that's what ethnicity typically meant.
Yes, and I think
I'm not sure why you thought that either, to be honest. Sorry.
What?
I think your definition is correct, Destiny.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. What the fuck? These guys called me retarded going into this.
What?
Oh, sorry.
Wait, what happened?
Nothing. Hold on 1 second.
Wait, why did they call you that?
No, nothing. That guy said that I was the one that was cringeworthy in that conversation. I don't even know what the fuck we were talking about. Can anybody tell me what the fuck that conversation was? What were we even talking about? So I thought when the guy said he wanted to have a debate on forming an ethno-state, I thought it was about people that looked similar, that came of a similar racial background, of a similar ethnicity. But I guess ethno-state just means nation, and I guess ethno-state just means nationalistic, and nation and ethnicity just means people with similar values. I don't know. I'm so confused.